think you got to go to, is it Microsoft Edge? You got to click on. Cool.
Shalom, Israel. And when I mean Israel, I'm talking about the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. The Lord's 54th annual Passover is going down again this year, sundown, April 1st at 500 South Salisbury.
The speaker, no, the one for the black one.
Black one. Just see on top of it, you turn the on button, yeah?
Is there a light next to aux? Yeah, see if it plays now.
Shalom, Israel. And when I mean Israel, I'm talking about the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. The Lord's 54th annual Passover is going down again this year, sundown, April 1st at 500 South Salisbury Street in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Downtown Conventional Center. The Lord's 54th annual Passover. Last year, brothers and sisters showed up from all over the world, rocking ancient garments and glorious apparel in order to serve the Most High in Christ. Now, it's that time again. Commander General Yohana's putting out the decree for all brothers and sisters to show up sundown, April 1st in Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us at the Sheridan in Raleigh, the hotel right downtown. It's at 421 South Salisbury. The Passover is right up the block at the convention center, literally within walking distance. Make sure you pull up. Make sure that you do your due diligence because rooms are going fast and they are limited this weekend. You understand? We have months in advance of preparation. Do not wait till the last minute to get your room. The Lord's 54th annual Passover, Saturday, April 1st in Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us there.
It's about time sending curses to them enemies.
Good evening.
Oh, shit. Go back to that now.
Go back.
Hey, this one right?
Yeah, that's one.
Shalom. It's that time again, Israel. It's the Lord's 54th annual Passover in North Carolina.
Y'all know what we do. Y'all know what we came to do. Huh?
The ISUPK under Commander General Yohana will be hosting the Lord's 54th annual Passover in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Downtown Convention Center. This is something that you do not want to miss. Make sure that y'all bring the entire family.
Oh, you think I'm bullshitting? Wait till I get richer. If I gotta go to ground, I'ma shut the town down. I ain't about to stop until I hit sand down. All you gonna see is a lot of men down.
The Downtown Raleigh Convention Center.
Never stopping now. You running now. All my niggas go to ground. We go to ground. You dealing with the menopause.
For Blacks, Hispanic, and Native Indians. Go to ISUPK.com to purchase your tickets today. $200 per every adult over the age of 17 years old.
We are not the same. No, we not related. I'm not stuck on lit. My camp undefeated. You cannot debate. You just want the clap.
Annual Passover, April the 1st, is coming down to Raleigh, North Carolina. That's right. Commander General Yohana has done it.
Oh, you got extra bed sheets?
You don't want to miss this. Pull yourself. Pull yourself.
What the hell's this? Let me play one more advert.
Shalom. It's that time again, Israel. The Lord's fifth and you in North Carolina.
Y'all know what we do. Y'all know what we came to do. Huh?
The ISUPK, under Commander General Yohana, will be hosting the Lord's 54th annual Passover in Raleigh, North Carolina, at the Downtown Convention Center.
Same place.
This is something that you do not want to miss. Make sure that y'all bring the entire family.
In the hotel.
You think I'm bullshitting? Wait till I get with you. If I gotta go to ground, I'ma shut the town down. I ain't about to stop until I hear stand down. All you gonna see is a lot of men down.
The Downtown Raleigh Convention Center.
We ain't never stopping now. You running now. All my niggas go to ground. We go to ground. You dealing with the men of war.
For Blacks, Hispanic, and Native Indians. Go to ISUPK.com to purchase your tickets today. $200 per every adult over the age of 17 years old.
We are not the same. No, we not related. I'm not stuck on living. Death is a vacation. My camp undefeated. Not debated. You just want the clout.
The
We just
Lord's
want the grace. I'm
54th
just trying to
annual Passover, April the 1st, is coming down to Raleigh, North Carolina.
That's right.
Commander General Yohana has done it again. You don't want to miss this. Booyah! Booyah!
Shalom, Israel. And when I mean Israel, I'm talking about the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. The Lord's 54th annual Passover is going down again this year, sundown, April 1st at 500 South Salisbury Street in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Downtown Conventional Center. It's got enough room for all of us. The Lord's 54th annual Passover. Last year, brothers and sisters showed up from all over the world, rocking ancient garments and glorious apparel in order to serve the Most High in Christ. Now, it's that time again. Commander General Yohana is putting out the decree for all brothers and sisters to show up sundown, April 1st in Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us at the Sheridan in Raleigh, the hotel right downtown. It's at 421 South Salisbury. The Passover is right up the block at the convention center, literally within walking distance. Make sure you pull up. Make sure that you do your due diligence because rooms are going fast and they are limited this weekend. You understand? We have months in advance of preparation. Do not wait till the last minute to get your room. The Lord's 54th annual Passover, Saturday, April 1st in Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us there.
It's about time, sending curses to them enemies.
All right, Shalom Israel. This is the Feast of Purim. As you know, this is one of our memorials. So we're going to break the whole thing down. This is a 2-day feast, which falls today and tomorrow. So we're going to break the whole thing down. Also, any questions, just type them in. Any questions in the classroom, just put your hand up. And we're going to go to the book of Esther. So we're going to start from the book of Esther, chapter 1 and verse 1.
Book
right after Nehemiah.
Book of Esther, chapter 1 and verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus.
So now it says it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This was the king of the time. This was the king at the time. So now they call him Ahasuerus, but in history they call him Xerxes. So in history, this is Xerxes. And the time that Xerxes reigned and the time that this happened is all around the same time. So you can find records of Xerxes and them having the Jews in slavery and all of those kind of things. And this was in what the year 497 BC. So if you look up the year 497 BC, and you look at what Xerxes and them was doing, you'll see that it ties in with the book of Esther. So now what it is, in their records, they just give Esther a different name, they give Mordecai a different name. So there's some people that will tell you Esther and Mordecai didn't exist, but obviously they just changed the names. They gave them different names. Go ahead.
This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia.
So he reigned from India to Ethiopia. This man reigned and ruled over all of them countries. He ruled over all of them countries, all over them provinces. So that's where he reigned from India to Ethiopia. So whatever was in those lands, he ruled over them. Go ahead.
Over 107 provinces.
Over 107. How much provinces did he have?
107 provinces.
He had 127 provinces. So now a province is what a country or a region brought under a rule by somebody else. So these countries and cities was under his rule. Go ahead.
That in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan.
And I believe Shushan is where in Iran. So Shushan is, I believe that's in Iran. So that's where his kingdom was. And then when you look at the history, you will see that obviously most of these things took place. You'll see that I'm sure them Arabs even made a tomb called the tomb of Mordecai. You heard of it, the tomb of Mordecai? Hold on, let me see if I can find it. I believe it's what Jewish people and hold on, give me 1 second. Made one like the tomb of Mordecai and Esther. I'm sure Jewish people go there every year. Hold on, I can't even show you on TripAdvisor. Listen, you wanna go there? You can hold on. Let me show you. So you just so you know. See, look, the tomb of Esther and Mordecai. So it says the tomb of Esther and Mordecai, landmark and historical building. And what you will find is his province was in Iran, and they've placed the tomb of Mordecai in Iran. So it says the most sacred Jewish shrine in Iran, letting you know that's where the tomb of Mordecai and Esther is. So do we know if they're really there? No, they're probably not there. They probably just made it there. I believe they made this in maybe between the 11th and 16th century. They made this. So is their bodies really there? 10 times out of 10, it's not. But obviously, they just know how to make money. So they make all of these things, the tomb of Esther, the tomb of Mordecai. But obviously, if you look at Persian history and whatnot, they called them a different name. So they didn't call them Mordecai and Esther. I can't remember what name they called them, but it was a different name. Because there's some people that say, with Purim, people say there's no history on it, there's no truth to it. And if you know anything about it, you look at Xerxes, and you look at who Xerxes ruled over, and then you'll see that he ruled over us. So it's all in the history. They just named them different names. And what you'll find is the book of Esther is around 497 BC. So now let's see when Xerxes reigned. Let's type, what year did Xerxes reign? Hold on. Hold on. Like I said, it was about 400 something BC. And it says Xerxes, Old Persian. And yeah, this is the name that they call him. So you see how here it calls him Ahasuerus. It calls him Ahasuerus, but here this was the name that they called him. Kishar, or how you pronounce it, also known as Xerxes. And he reigned in around the year 465 BC, which ties into what around the time the book of Esther is recorded to have been written. So it says, commonly known as Xerxes the Great was the fourth king of kings of the Achaemenid Empire, ruling from 486 to 465 BC. So he ruled from 486 to 465 BC. He was the son and successor of Darius the Great. So that's who Ahasuerus is. His is known as Xerxes. And the other name, and that was during the years that he reigned, and that ties in around with the time of Esther and Mordecai. Go ahead.
In the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes.
So now, into the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast to all of his kings and all the people that ruled under him. He made like a party, a celebration. Go ahead.
The power of Persia and Media.
The power of what?
The power of Persia and Media.
And when we just looked up Xerxes, it said that he reigned in Persia. So give me 1 second. Shalom Sayyid Shabbat. Yeah, can't something in the class now. All right. All right, shalom. So now he's known as Xerxes in history, and the Bible calls him Ahasuerus. Go ahead.
The nobles and princes of the provinces being before him, when he shewed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor.
So now he had riches, and he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom.
Right.
And how did they get riches and glorious kingdoms? By ruling over other countries and nations, man. By stealing, robbing, and having you do a ton of slave labor. Yeah, go ahead.
And the honor of his excellent majesty many days.
And the honor of his excellent majesty many days. Go ahead.
Even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace.
So now he made a feast to all the people that was present in Shushan the palace. Some days these devils, like some days, like say for instance, when King Charles becomes king, he's gonna make a feast to everybody in his province, man. What happens? Everybody gets a day off work, you get a bank holiday, and you get street parties. If you know anything about Benjamites, man, this outside here, they're gonna be partying left, right, and center, man. They're gonna have the biggest parties outside here. Go ahead.
Both unto great and small 7 days.
Both unto what?
Both unto great and small.
So he said both unto great and small 7 days. He gave them a party. He said, you know what? This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna celebrate this. You can have a party for 7 days, great and small, meaning the big men in his kingdom and the young men in his kingdom. They all get to party. Go ahead.
In the court of the garden of the king's palace.
In the court of the garden in the king's palace. Go ahead.
Where were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble.
And back then, purple was like a rich color. It was like a rich royal color. If you had on that, obviously, it should signify that you had money and those kind of things. Go ahead.
The beds were of gold and silver.
And this man had money, man. The beds were of gold and silver. Go ahead.
Upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble.
And this was like look like royalty. He had all of these things going on, man. Meanwhile, black people is starving and dying, man. Right. You look at Buckingham Palace, they got all of these things going on. Meanwhile, black people are homeless, starving and dying, working for minimum wage. That's right. And they're living a life of luxury. And then what they do is they give you parties. Oh, it's the King's Jubilee. And we take these things and we feel like we are part of it, man. The reason they give you these days is why? Because they're happy with all the wealth they've made of you and all of those kind of things. Go ahead.
And they gave them drink in vessels of gold.
And listen, they had drinks out of vessels of gold, man. Meaning they had golden cups to hold up. Go ahead.
The vessels being diverse, one from another.
And the vessels being diverse, one from another, man. Meaning they had all these vessels, but they was all different, one from another. Some was tall, some was smaller, some was this shape, some was that shape. Go ahead.
And royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king.
Go ahead.
And the drinking was according to the law.
And the what?
And the drinking was according to the law.
Meaning, obviously, they didn't overdo the drinking. So the drinking was according to the law. Like in here, when we drink according to the law.
Right.
Like in here, we don't need to drink until we vomit to have a good night.
Right.
We don't need to be legless to have a good night. We know, okay, then we're gonna have a drink, and then we know when to stop drinking. So we know when to stop, because we drink according to the law. Whereas everybody that goes to Broad Street and those kind of places, they're not drinking according to the law.
Right.
That's why people are falling down the stairs. Women be jumping in taxis and the taxi drivers taking them to a remote area. They're falling asleep in the back of the taxi. That's not drinking according to the law, man. Drinking according to the law is, you know, your surroundings and all of those kind of things. You're not wobbling everywhere. You're not, what's it called? Pulling a whitey, is that what they call it? You're not pulling a whitey. Like what you'll find is with Edomites, even at work dudes, they get drunk. Listen, there was an Edomite that I worked with. He got drunk at one of the work dudes and they had to pump his stomach, man. They had to pump his stomach. And then the next day he came into work and was trying to give everyone orders and everyone was laughing like this guy that can't even control his drinking. Listen, man, drink according to the law. Because there's some things you're going to do when you're drunk that when you're sober, you're going to regret it, man. Go ahead.
None did compel. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure.
That they should do according to every man's pleasure. Go ahead.
Also, Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the
So
royal
now
house.
Vashti, she was the queen at the time. This is who Xerxes was dealing with at the time. And this was his woman. So she did what? Because she's a woman, because she's his woman, she had like handmaids and so forth. If you know anything about kings, their wives have handmaids that do everything for them. So if you know about how kings live, a king will have a wife, and his wife will have what are them women called? Is it called their chamberlains or whatever? They will do everything for them. So Vashti had these. She made a party for those also. If you know anything about Queen Victoria and Mary Queen of Scots and all of them, they had these kind of women also. They had these kind of things. Go ahead.
So the men and the women were partying separate.
Well, it is the men and the women wasn't partying separate in the beginning. They would have been partying together, but because she was the queen, she was partying with her women that was underneath her. Whereas whatever the poor was doing, they would have just been all partying together. But because these are the royal ones, the king, he's partying with his men, and then Vashti made a party for her handmaids. So the handmaids would have all been partying together. Go ahead.
In the royal house, which belonged.
So now these women, they was partying in the royal house, whereas us poor black people, we would not have been partying in the royal house. It's same like when King Charles has his ascension to the throne, we're gonna be partying on Lodge Road. That's why we're gonna be partying. We're gonna be partying outside the Lodge Road, whereas these Edomites is gonna be partying in Buckingham Palace. So we're gonna be all on Lodge Road together. I believe you have to get planning permission, the block off all the roads. And black people just party, so it's kind of like that. The poor would have just been doing their own thing. There was just given the license to party that day. Same like when the Queen has her jubilee, you're given your license to party that day. Whereas you can go to the council. Can we have this road shop because we want it to be a one-way system, so we can have face painting and whatever they want to do. So they was just doing the same kind of thing, which lets you know history's repeating itself, man. The same way they was getting days to do whatever because the king's happy is the same way they give us days to do whatever because the king's happy again. So his party, and then imagine he's saying, you know what, you slaves can be part of my celebration, whereas really it's nothing to us, but he just gives it to everyone because he's happy and he wants everyone to have a day off to commemorate him and know who he is and worship him. Go ahead.
On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine.
On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, so the drinking and his merry is happy. Go ahead.
He commanded Mehuman, Bista, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus.
So now this is the king. He had 7 chamberlains. They served under him, and he gave them orders. And the order was to go and bring Vashti the queen. Same like Henry VIII had chamberlains. He had the chamberlain called what's his name now? What's his famous one's name, man? And he went to find Henry VIII for wife. What's his name now? Is it Thomas Cromwell? I believe it's Thomas. Yeah, Thomas Cromwell. So he went to find Henry VIII for wife because he was Henry VIII's chamberlain. What this man done is, Henry VIII was obviously his wife just died. So he said, you know what, Henry, I'm going to find you a wife. So he's gone to, I believe, France. He's seen a woman. This is a time before camera phones. He's got a famous artist to draw a picture of the woman. But he told the artist, draw the picture beautiful. He's drawn the picture so beautiful. Henry VIII was like, yo, I want to marry her. When Henry VIII did see the woman, he was so mad that he beheaded his chamberlain, man. Henry VIII beheaded. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Henry VIII beheaded him, man. Because that was, it catfished him. He gave him a picture of a woman that. Oh, let me see if I can find it. Henry VIII beheaded. I believe his name was Thomas Cromwell. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up. So this is just an example to show you how much power these kings had. If a king wanted you beheaded, it's gonna happen. Hold on. Let me see if I can share screen it. So this is Thomas Cromwell's Wikipedia. It says Earl of Essex was an English lawyer, statesman who served as chief minister to King Henry VIII from 1534 to 1540, when he was beheaded on orders of the king, who later blamed false charges for the execution. So now Henry VIII blamed him for everything, man, and for the catfishing as well. Let me see if that part's in there. Listen, Henry VIII beheaded near enough everyone, man. Like what you'll find is today, Catholics hate Henry VIII. Because why? Apparently Henry VIII was getting the Catholic priests beheaded, man. The Catholic priests were talking whatever. Henry VIII was getting them beheaded. Yeah, it was Protestant. All because why? He wanted to divorce his wife, man. That's how far he went to divorce his wife. He made a whole new church and a whole new religion because he wanted to divorce his wife. The Pope was like, no, you can't divorce your wife. What did he do? Protestant church, which means protesting against the Catholic Church. So he's made that whole church, and he said, okay, we can get divorces now. And then and then that's the big split between Catholics and Protestants, and obviously it just kept going on and on. Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
Exactly, would you say that's like the blood and the Crips today, like the whole branch off from all that Manchester United in City, red and blue and all that?
You could say, but with Henry VIII, his issue was a lot deeper. His issue was, I'm a king, I want a divorce. He's wrote to the Pope. The Pope said, we're not going to grant you this divorce. And he said, you know what? All right, then I'm going to make my own religion. And that's why what you'll find is in them early years, a lot of, like with Henry VIII wanting to divorce his wife and making a whole new religion, so much people died in that war. Like what he done is they wanted every king to be Protestant in England. They didn't want no Catholics on the throne. So because of that, everybody that was and because of that now is the reason why black people, the Jacobites didn't get the throne. Why? Because James VII was Catholic, and England said, no, we want Protestant kings. And because it was Catholic, the banned his line from ever sitting on the throne. Then they passed it to a Protestant, and then that's why they don't have the throne today. Because obviously, I believe just mainly England was Protestant, but because they was coming from Scotland, they would have been Catholic. Because his mother Mary, she was Catholic and all of those things. Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
What I was asking though is like, you know, with the branch off some of the, you know, that from that setting, what they did, Protestant
and Catholic.
That trickled down to United and you know that whole,
all of that breakup.
Yeah, blood and Crips kind of.
Yeah, but yeah, basically. So what you will have is, and the same thing happens with what these fake Israelite groups happens the same way. Someone don't like something, they break off and have what they do like, and then before you know it, you're now enemies. And then that's what happened with them. It happens with all these gangs. Even with the gangs in Birmingham, the Bergers and the Johnsons, what you will have is one time those all friends, they fell out over something, they split into two groups, now they just kill each other continuously. But people blame black on black crime when Protestant and Catholic crime is worse than black on black crime. But nobody speaks about it, man. I mean, at least with these Bloods and Crips, they don't talk about how much they love God and they don't claim to serve God. The Protestants and Catholics, they claim to serve God and they're killing each other, man. Those are, is it on there?
Yeah,
Which part is it?
Number 5.
Number here.
Yeah. From there going down.
Yeah, go ahead. He later fell from power after arranging the king's marriage to she was German, not French, to German Princess Anne of Cleves. Now Henry VIII said, this is what Henry VIII said. He said she stunk and she had a big nose. So he said she stunk and she had a big nose and he didn't want to marry her. So Henry VIII was fuming. Henry VIII went back to him and said, yo, you better tell him this marriage is an old, I'm not marrying her. Thomas Cromwell was like, no, we can't do that because if we do that, then we're going to have to go to war with Germany because if you marrying her, it builds the relationship between England and Germany. So then obviously Henry VIII's like, I'm not doing it. And then he goes, you know what, at best, she can live like the Queen's sister. And living like the Queen's sister means you get all the perks of a queen, but you're just not the queen. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Cromwell had hoped that the marriage would breathe fresh life into the... Yeah, so this way he done it. In England, but Henry found his new bride unattractive, and the marriage was a disaster for Cromwell, ending in an annulment 6 months later. Cromwell was arraigned under a bill of attainder. Hold on. Yeah. And executed for treason and heresy on Tower Hill on the 28th of July, 1540. The king later expressed regret at the loss of his chief minister, and his reign never recovered from the incident. So yeah, that's how serious these kings take it, man. They can get you beheaded just like that back then. You done anything wrong, you went against their orders, they would behead you, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, like you said, it never recovered, innit? He killed his right on Monday.
And then after, once he calmed down, he felt like, you know what? I shouldn't have done it. The other one done it. What's her name now? Is it Queen Elizabeth when she killed Mary Queen of Scots? She felt bad also after, because that was her first cousin, and she killed her after. She felt bad, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And she killed her. Why? Because of the same Catholic Protestant. Yeah. So Catholics and Protestants, they've always been killing one another. So she killed her. So I can say that again.
And so like you said before, the Johnsons are the one family.
Exactly. And they break off and then they start to kill each other. Slacker album, where was we? Go ahead.
To bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal.
So now I said, bring Vashti the queen with the crown royal. So tell Vashti, go get ready, put on the jewels. And he wanted to show this woman off. He wanted to show this. His heart's merry. And he's saying, damn, I got one of the baddest women in all the provinces. Let me show her off. Go ahead.
To show the people and the princes her beauty.
To what?
To show the people and the princes her beauty.
Obviously, that's heathen customs. Obviously, we don't do that.
Right.
So we wouldn't bring our woman and make her put on the skimpiest clothes and spin her around so men can see her beauty.
Right.
Because what's going to happen? Men's going to want to have sex with her. Obviously, that's heathen culture. So that's what he wanted to do. Go ahead.
For she was fair to look on.
So she was meant to be beautiful. She was fair to look on. Go ahead.
But the Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment.
But what?
But the Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment.
So he's a king and he gave her an order and he told her to come and she didn't even come, man. Go ahead.
Therefore, the king was very wroth.
And he's wroth. Why? Because it's embarrassing, man. Imagine you rule over all these men and all these women and you're telling your woman to come up and she's not coming, man. You're going to feel like, damn, all these men under me, everyone listens to me, but she's not listening. And then imagine this. She's not listening to a rich king. What chance do you have as a man being a poor black man? No woman's going to listen to you, man. Women are going to call you a deadbeat and treat you how they've been treating black men for years, man. And Ahasuerus, he said, nah, he's not going to have this. Read on.
And his anger burned in him.
And he was mad about it, man. He said, she ain't going to embarrass me in front of all these kingdoms. Go ahead.
Then the king said to the wise men which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew the law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Merez, Marcina, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media.
So now these was his 7 princes, and these was wise men under him. So these men would minister to him. You see, like how we just read about Henry VIII had Thomas Cromwell, one of his wise men. I believe they call it a privy. They would call it a privy council. So they call it a privy council. All your men would come and counsel, and you'd sit there and you'd be like, I like that idea. I like that idea. They've been doing this from way back in the days. So the king don't come up with all the decisions by himself. What he does is he calls his wise men, and then they will decide, all right, I think we should do this. I think we shouldn't go to war with this country because it's not beneficial. So the king didn't just sit there and decide things by himself. His council would do it for him. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Which saw the king's face.
Which what?
Which saw the king's face.
And they saw the king's face. They saw that he was angry and he was rough. They saw he was angry and he was rough. Go ahead.
And which sat the first in the kingdom.
Go ahead.
What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the
So
law?
now in this council, they're saying, what shall we do until this queen? What shall we do to this queen Vashti? So he's called his men because he's thinking, what do we do about this? Just remember, just because you're the king, it don't mean you're the wisest out of everyone.
Right.
So he wasn't the wisest out of everyone. So that's why he had men under him, and they would have a council, and they would sit down and decide we're going to do this. Same like King Charles, he's not wise at all, man.
Right.
Boris Johnson, he's not wise at all. That's why they have the Lord of Commons, the Lord of this, where they all sit down and have meetings behind closed doors that we don't know about. Go ahead.
Because she had not performed the commandment of the king
Oh, she
and
what?
her servants. Because she had not performed the commandment of the king and her servants.
She have not performed the orders of the king. Ahasuerus. Go ahead.
By the chamberlains. And then you can answer before the king and princes. Vashti the queen have not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes.
Wait, she has what?
She have not done wrong to the king only.
And these men was wise. These men said she ain't only done wrong to the king. She ain't only disrespected the king. Because why? Men are going to see that Vashti disrespected the king, and then these women are going to act up and think, okay, then we can disrespect our men.
Right.
So these wise men seen it, and they said, we need to nip this in the bud now. We need to let her know she's replaceable, man. So the next woman that he gets, don't act up, man. Let her know, listen, there's a place and you're going to stay in that place, and you're not going to run laps around the king. Because if these wise men, they was in the right spirit when they handled the situation. The thing is this, the Christian pastor, he's in the wrong spirit, man. Because he lets women run rampant. He lets women assault men, hit men. This king and his wise men, they weren't going to put up with it, man. Go ahead.
But also to all the princes.
But also to what?
To all the princes.
Also to all the princes, man. Just think. If there's a man that you look up to and you see his woman bullying him and sticking it on him, right, you're going to think, damn. Your woman's going to see that and be like, yo, I'm respecting you. Wow, his woman don't respect him. I'm going to start respecting you. That's why he needs to put his woman in her place and say, check her in front of everyone if you have to. Go ahead, Matthew.
It's got a bit like Princess Diana and Prince Charles.
100%.
Where everybody's defending her when she committed adultery in the first place. 100%.
Listen, she was shaming him. She was shaming him in all them interviews. She went on interviews talking about the royal family do this and do that. And imagine, why do you think so much women love Princess Diana, man? Because they want to be like Princess Diana. They don't want no man to tell them nothing. People always say Princess Diana was free-spirited. Listen, she ain't no more. Right. She ended up in a tunnel somewhere. Don't play with Charles, man. She ended up in a tunnel somewhere. Now I don't know if it was an inside job. People say it is. I don't know. So now she thought, you know what? I'm gonna embarrass him. I'm gonna leave this rich white man. And who did she marry? Some Arab prince, I believe. Some Arab prince. So like I said, what's his name again? Listen, you're gonna have to say it louder. I can't even pronounce that.
Golda Al-Fayed. His family are arms dealers, right? That supply weapons to Africa, and they've got they built one of the main mosques in Mecca.
Damn. And do you think Prince Charles was going to make that man be raising his kids? No chance, man. Right. Harry would have been a Muslim with a kufi on, man. Harry would have had a kufi on. Prince Charles said, I'm not going to do that, man. Right. Prince Charles said, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because his heir would end up being Muslim, man. Imagine that if, obviously, they would have spent more time with the stepdad. He probably would have made them become Muslim. Prince William, who's next in line after Charles, would probably be Muslim, man. Just imagine that. Just imagine England having a Muslim king, man. Listen, man, these Muslims will be no stopping them, man. I'm telling you. Tommy Robinson would lose his mind, man. I'm telling you. Listen, man, Tommy Robinson would lose his mind. Go ahead.
But also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces.
So they said all these provinces from Ethiopia to Shushan, Iran, and all of them places. She's basically embarrassed everybody, man. Go ahead.
Right. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women.
For what?
For the deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women.
And they said, listen, man, if we don't nip it in the bud now, the spirit that's on Vashti is going to spread to all women.
Right.
All women is going to be out of order everywhere. Imagine this man is rich and he's ruling over all these places. He's moving over all these places. He rules over all of them. And he can't even get his woman to just come to him when he's telling her to come.
Right.
What chance do you get, man? Your woman ain't going to listen to you because you're a poor man. Imagine you ain't even a king, you're a poor man. And she's going to be like, well, this queen don't listen to a king. Why am I listening to you, man? And then before you know it, there's going to be songs like To the Left, To the Left. There's going to be songs like No Scrub, Passenger Side, this and that. Listen, man, the thing is these pastors ain't wise, and that's why those songs exist. I'm sure Beyonce grew up in the church, right? And all the songs she's got, see, she grew up in the church, and all the songs she's got is about what? Leaving men and all the single ladies. Listen, man, if they was doing a good job in church, they would tell her, don't be making those kind of songs. So now, these songs comes to these women, it's noised abroad, and guess what happens? These women then start to do whatever they feel they want to do. Go ahead.
Now, they've got a new one in the church. Twerking for God.
That's what they do. And they actually twerk.
Yeah.
Damn. And their God is Caesar Borgia, man. That's who they're twerking for. Their God is Caesar Borgia. Christianity is weird. Just imagine waking up in the morning, man. Imagine you wake up in the morning and you pray to a white Jesus to keep you alive today. It just makes no sense. Imagine you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is pray to a white Jesus, man. That's insane, man. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Like with the women ruling, you know what I mean? Once the women start to rule, that kingdom is heading down on a
exactly. If you know anything about these men here, these men have their women in order, man. Listen, man, these men have their women so much in order that all of them claim the good Muslims, and they're trying to run from Sharia law, man. They're trying to run to England, talking about this life is too hard. I'm sure this women can't drive over there, and they can't drive. And some of the women I see on the road, it's a good idea. I think it might be it's somewhat of a good idea to some of the driving that I see on the road. Go ahead.
Over there. If a woman walks out and like they've actually got a woman that measures how long their skirt is.
Damn.
And if it's not long enough to get arrested.
Damn. And what you're seeing with a lot of these countries is the white man's going there and testing the waters. What he's doing is 2 gay men are going over there and kissing on the beach, and they're doing that, and they get locked up, and they know that England and America is going to come to their aid. They do that, and then the people in the country. Hold on, let me see if I can find the article. There was one where there was I think there was locked up. Was it 500 years each? I believe 2 men locked up 500 years. Let me see. We're kissing on the beach somewhere. Hold on, let me see if I can find the article.
Is anyone cold?
What is it now? Hold on, I need to find this article. Real. Let me see if I can find it. No, I can't even find it. But there was 2 Edomite men. They went to, I believe, Dubai or somewhere. One of them Arab countries, and was kissing on the beach, and the both was locked up. And then now England and America will come to their aid. And then what will happen is they will end up converting all of those people in that country. What you got to realize is now that everyone's got the internet, people see how the Western world live and they want that freedom. And then they'll be like, you know what? We want that freedom. And before you know it, England will give it to them, man. Before you know it, them countries over there will become as gay as these countries over here. Whereas over there, to be gay in them countries, they kill you, man. Two men being caught doing whatever acts they want to do over there. It's punishable by death. Whereas over here, it's applauded and it's okay. And the people that call you names for you doing those disgusting acts, they get locked up over here. Whereas over there, it's the other way around. Now they're trying to bring their customs over there. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women.
So it said this deed's going to come abroad unto all women, meaning all women is going to be out of order. Go ahead.
So that they shall despise their husbands
their
eyes. So that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes.
And this is what happens. If they left it, these women would have despised their husbands, man. Whereas him being a king, he wanted to be a perfect example of how a woman is supposed to treat a man, how she's supposed to do this when you say so. Whereas now, because of Beyonce, women despise their husbands, man. Because of all this music and all these. I was watching one of them shows the other day, man. What Baddies South or Baddies West. All them women do is fight each other for the whole day, man. They call it reality TV. And then you would think this is how all black women are when it's far from the truth, man. You would think that black women, just everywhere they go, they fight each other. You would think everywhere. Has anyone watched that program? Was it just me? Anyone watched it? Watched it?
I've seen the introduction. It was enough already.
Listen, man, Tommy Lee, all she's known for is fighting. She's known for just fighting, man. And this comes on TV. And there's some women who actually believe Real Housewives of Atlanta is real life. And this is what you'll see is black people's misfortunes and black people's disgusting lifestyle. They put it on TV as Real Housewives of Atlanta. Whereas this ain't how real women are supposed to be. Go ahead.
When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath.
And this is going to arise too much contempt. Go ahead.
If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before the king.
So now they said, all right then. So these wise men in his privy council, they said, let a law be written in Persia and whatnot. So they wrote this law that let Vashti no more come before the king.
Right.
So he said, okay, I've called you once. Let it be known that we're not going to call you again, man. He said, write this law. We're not going to call you again, man. I've called you once. You're not gonna do me like that. I'm not going to call you again. So what did he do? Because she didn't listen, he replaced them, man. But read that part again where it said, let it be written in. Go ahead.
And let it be written among the laws of the Persians.
So this
and
is
Medes.
Understanding. This is written amongst the law of the Persians and the Medes. You can't cut your woman off because she don't listen to you. This is their law. This ain't our law. Our law is obviously you can't divorce your woman. I know sometimes she gives you a headache and you wish you could, but our law states you can't divorce her. This is their law. So he goes, let it be written amongst the Persians and the Medes that Vashti no more coming before the king. Go ahead.
That Vashti come no more before the king Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is
and let what?
she.
He said what?
And let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she.
See, these wise men said there's more women out there, man. They didn't tell him cry and beg Vashti to come back,
right,
and cry and try and convince her. They said, listen, man, give that royal estate to a woman that's better than her. And then the other women will see this, that look, you're not above me. This is what's going to happen. If you don't listen, there's somebody else out there. So that's what they instructed him to do that. But obviously, you don't want to, like say for instance, if you've got a woman and she's horrible, you don't want to look at it like, I'm just going to go find me another woman better than her. Because then when you find the next woman, what if she's amongst the two? You're going to be going around in a circle. At some stage in life, you have to realize, you know what, maybe I'm the problem. Because sometimes you might be the problem in the relationship. But obviously, nine times out of 10, it might be her. It might be you 1 time out of 10. But obviously, that's why you get counsel and those things. So don't just look at it like she ain't listening to me. Let me go find a woman that is going to listen to me. Because in the beginning, she might listen to you, and 3 months down the line, what happens? If she stops listening, what you're going to do? Get another woman, and you're going to find yourself going in circles. So it's best to get counsel on everything like that. Even Ahasuerus got counsel from his men on this situation. So you should also get counsel from men of the Lord on your situation. Go ahead.
And when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published through all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor.
All the what?
All the wives shall give to their husbands honor.
And all the wives are supposed to give their husbands honor, man. Like, you ain't supposed to disrespect him and all of those kind of things. The thing is this, the day you open your legs to that man, listen, you become his possession, man. And this is why, before you get married to a man, you need to know who that man is. Because everything he says after that, you have to follow them. You have to follow his orders, man.
Right.
Now, if you know this man's a drug addict, you shouldn't open your legs to him then, because he's going to give you orders and you're not going to want to follow them. But now this is your man. You can't marry this man and then complain afterwards that, oh, he's not the right man for me. You're meant to know this before you open your legs to him, man. You're meant to know if he's the right man for you. You can't be with this man. You sleep with him the first week. How long does it take Shabla? A week. What did Craig David say? 7 days, right? When it took him, was it Wednesday? Did it take Wednesday? I believe it was it Wednesday? So it took him 2-3 days. So you can't do that and then have to complain about the man you're with. That's why in the ISUPK there's a 6-month rule. Go ahead.
Both to great and small. And the same pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to
and now that council, it pleased the king and the princes. Go ahead.
And the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters unto all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house.
That every what?
That every man should bear rule in his own house.
And these men was in the right spirit, man. That every man should bear rule in his own house. Imagine this: you're meant to be a man of that house. You're meant to come home and you're meant to be the man of that house, man. You're not meant to come home and being attacked and feeling like you don't want to go home and home's not a happy place. You're meant to come home and home's meant to be a happy place, man. Right. You're meant to come through the door and it's meant to be your happy place. Right. You're meant to come home to all that love and all of those kind of things. You ain't supposed to come home and there's bare arguing and fighting and this woman, your clothes is packed by the door and all of those kind of things. If that's the case, you're not going to want to come home, man. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Like, you know how Esau's got these.
Zarpan loves this topic, isn't he? He loves it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I like how Esau's got these women ruling over men and all that stuff. And guess what, man? They have to hit the pub before they go home. They have their own women stressing them out themselves.
Right.
That's it.
You know what I mean? It's nothing.
That's it. And here they didn't want that to happen. They understood that a woman is supposed to respect her husband. And they said, let every man rule in his own house. Read that again, Arban.
And to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house.
And listen, man, if you're a man with a woman, you rule over your house, man. You make sure you rule over that house. Don't allow your woman to abuse you and attack you and all of those kind of things, man. You're meant to rule in that house. Read on.
And that it should be published according to the language of every people. And
they said, publish this according to the language of every people. Because why he had like 150 provinces. So obviously all of them were speaking different languages. He said he wants this written in every language, that every man rules his own house. He didn't want men emasculated, man. Right, every man to rule his own house. Go ahead.
That's the end of chapter 1. Read on.
Yeah, go ahead.
After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti.
So now, after this council, he was appeased because why? They gave him wise counsel. They said to him, you know what, just we'll find you somebody better than her. So they said, we're going to find you a better looking woman, give her everything that you gave to Vashti. Go ahead.
He remembered Vashti and what she had done and what was decreed against him.
And he remembered what she had done, man. He remembered how she tried to shame him in front of everybody. Go ahead.
Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king.
And they said, let there be beautiful women, man. Let there be beautiful unmarried women sought for the king. They said, let there be better looking women, man. They said, listen, we're going to find you a better woman. Go ahead.
And let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins.
So now he sent all his workers under him to all his provinces to find a woman for him. Go ahead.
Unto Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Hedge, the king.
So now they all went out looking at beautiful women. They all knew what his type was and said, you know what, we're gonna find you a better woman. So they all went out. They're looking at all these women, and then they're gonna come back with a report. Go ahead.
Unto the custody of Hedge, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them.
So there was a purification period where usually they would soak themselves in perfume and all of those kind of things. Go ahead.
And let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti.
And they said we're going to replace Vashti with who we choose. Go ahead.
And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the palace.
Now Shushan is in Iran, I believe. Go ahead.
There was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair.
Now there's a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai. Go ahead.
The son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamin, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity that had been carried away.
So now they was carried away captive, and then that's how they ended up in these captivities. So the people that will tell you there's no history of Purim, but like we showed earlier, there's what was I saying again? There's a tomb of Mordecai and Esther, and it's in Iran till this day. So they know that obviously they existed. They just called them different names.
Right.
Like we said, Xerxes reigned in 400 and something BC. The book of Esther, it's recorded in about 400 and something BC, which lets you know all of it links in. It's the same thing. They just name it a different thing. Go ahead.
With the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away.
Go ahead.
And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. So now he brought her up, why? Because she was an orphan. She had neither father nor mother. Go ahead. And the maid was fair and beautiful.
And what?
And the maid was fair and beautiful.
And the maid was fair and beautiful. So now they're talking about Esther. Go ahead.
Whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter.
So now Mordecai had brotherhood, man. Mordecai had brotherhood. He was her uncle, and he took care of her wife because her parents had passed away. Right. Go ahead.
So it came to pass when the king
and Mordecai raised her the right way, man. Because why her parents was passed away, Mordecai didn't do what so many black family members do. This is what black family members do. You lose a loved one, they all come to the funeral. Oh, if there's anything you need, I'll be there for you. After the funeral, you don't hear from nobody. Right. Everybody comes to the funeral, they drink the soup, they eat all the food. After the last song finishes playing, everybody goes about their own life, man. Obviously, Mordecai understood brotherhood and he took care of her and raised her. Whereas we need to get back to that, man. Go ahead.
So it came to pass when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Hegai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Hegai.
So now they seen Esther and saw that she was beautiful, so they brought her to the king's house. Go ahead.
And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him.
And he saw her and she pleased him, and she would. Why? Because she's one of the daughters of Israel, man. They're the best looking women on the planet, man. And this is why some men put up with all the arguing because of how beautiful they are. So most men can't see past it. So he's seen it. Just imagine him being a heathen king. Obviously, they're going to find our women beautiful. I mean, everybody does. Right. Everybody finds our women beautiful because obviously the best women on the planet. Go ahead. See, I give sisters credit from time to time. Sometimes I give credit, sometimes. Go ahead.
And he speedily gave her things for purification.
So he gave her the things for purification because he said, this is my one. Go ahead.
Which with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of the women.
So now he then moved her into the house of the women. Vashti was there previously. Now he's moved Esther into the house of the women. Go ahead.
Esther had not shewed her people nor her kindred.
So now, at this time, this man didn't know that Esther was a Jew. She hid her kindred and who her people was. He didn't know what her nationality was. She hid it from him. Because obviously, as everybody knows, as soon as you tell people you're a Jew or Israelite, you ain't getting no job. You ain't getting nothing, man. Right. It seems like you have to hide it from the world because people hate us that much that you tell them who you are, it's probably not going to end well. Go ahead.
For Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it.
And Mordecai gave her the order, listen, man, don't tell them who you people are. Go ahead.
And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did.
So to find out how Esther was doing, he would walk outside the palace and take a look, see how she's doing, and all of those kind of things. Go ahead.
And what should become of her?
And what shall become of her? Because he knew that obviously she's in the king's house, and he wanted to know what's going to become of her. Go ahead.
Now, when every maid's turn was come to go in to King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women, for so were the days of their purification accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil and myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors.
Can you imagine how beautiful they would have been smelling, man?
Right.
They're in that for 6 months in sweet oils and all of those kind of things, man. Go ahead.
And with other things,
like these women is they're soft, all of those kind of things.
Right.
They've gone through the right purification, man. This ain't like today where you pick up a woman at the end of Sugar Sweet and she's been dancing all night and she's smelling horrible. It's not. These is women who's purified themselves for this purpose,
right,
to meet this man. Go ahead.
Then thus came every maiden unto the king, whatsoever she desired was given her, to go with her out to the house of the women unto the king's house.
Go ahead.
In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned unto the second house of the women, to the custody of Shashgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her.
So now, what you'll find is with the king, he would have to call you in. You can't just turn up. You can't just turn up and come to his throne and pull him up and say, I want to speak to you about what you done last night. I want to do this, I want to do that. He has to call you. He holds out the scepter, then you can come in.
Right.
Go ahead.
Except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name.
So now you have to be called by name. So he called Vashti by name. She refused to come, so he replaced her. And these women had to wait to be called by name. It weren't a thing where you could just walk up on them and just pull up. It didn't work like that. Go ahead.
Now, when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Hegal, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her.
So everyone that looked upon Esther, they loved her, man. Like they looked at her like, damn, she's beautiful. She obtained favor. Go ahead.
So Esther was taken unto the king.
So now she was good looking, and what you'll find is Esther didn't use her looks to belittle her own people. In the end, you'll find she used it to save her people, man.
Right.
Like if you're a good looking sister, there's things that you can do, man. You know, if the brothers need a new building, you just go, yeah, I want to rent this building. You go, you be the face, and they think you're renting it. Really is for us. Right. Do all of those kind of things. Obviously, don't use your beauty, don't have beauty and use it for no reason. Make sure it benefits us in some way, man. All these degrees and all of those things, don't use it to belittle a black man. Use it to help black men, man.
Right.
If you've got skills and you can speak professionally, you make the phone calls, man. You make the phone calls, and when it comes to complaining about things, you do it, man. You use your skills and degrees for things like that.
Right.
Don't use it to belittle your own people. Go ahead.
So Esther was taken into King Ahasuerus unto his royal house in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight.
And the king loved Esther above all the women. Go ahead.
More than all the virgins, so that she set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen.
And he put this crown upon her head, and he made her queen. Go ahead.
Instead of Vashti.
Instead of what?
Instead of Vashti.
So now he made her queen instead of Vashti. Go ahead.
Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king.
Go ahead. And
when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred. Nor her people.
So now Esther at this stage, she ain't showed her kindred or her people. They didn't know what her background is. They didn't know she was a Jew. None of that. Go ahead.
As Mordecai had charged her, for Esther did the commandment of Mordecai.
And Esther obeyed her uncle's orders. She obeyed her uncle's orders. She obeyed Mordecai. Go ahead.
Like as when she was brought up with him.
She was brought up with him, so she obeyed his every order. Go ahead.
In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were rough and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen. And Esther certified the king thereof.
Hold on, what verse you at?
22.
Yeah, that's chapter 2 and verse 22, right? Hold on. Yeah, go ahead, go back to 21.
Verse 21. In those days, Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains.
So now, Mordecai sat in the king's gate so much that he heard the conversations. He sat in the king's gate so much that he heard the conversations of the chamberlains wanting to lay hands on the king.
Right.
What you'll find is every so often there's a king and his own men want to kill him. What you'll find is there's tons of kings that have been killed by their own men.
Right.
And Ahasuerus would have been one of them. If Mordecai wasn't in the king's gate, go ahead.
Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were rough.
And these men kept the gate. So these men are there, they're together. Go ahead.
And sought to lay hand on the king, Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen. And Esther certified the king thereof.
So now, Mordecai heard this. Obviously, Mordecai's gone to his niece.
Right.
So Mordecai's gone to his niece. Mordecai's told his niece, the planning to kill you. And then obviously she's gone and told Ahasuerus. Go ahead.
And Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter,
so now she went to the king. She told him, "Listen, Mordecai heard this in the gate." Go ahead.
And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles.
And back then, they was both hanged on the tree. Now back then, they were both hanged. What they done in English law, they call it treason.
Right.
So obviously, if you want to kill the king, it's called treason. Now you don't die for it no more, but back then, anything to do with treason, you will die for it. Nowadays, you just go to jail.
Right.
So there's hanged on the tree, and it was written in the Chronicles of the King. Now the Chronicles is like what? Just the records.
Right.
So like we have a book of Chronicles in the Bible. We have First Chronicles and Second Chronicles, and this is where the records of our kings is written. So now they also had the Chronicles also. Go ahead. Where his records was written. Go ahead.
3. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha.
So now, afterwards, he promoted Haman. Now, if you know anything about Haman, this was the guy that hated the Jews, man.
Right.
This guy hated the blacks and Hispanics. He hated them and wanted all of us dead. So this man was promoted. Go ahead.
The Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes.
And now he gave him a seat above all the princes. So if you know anything about Haman was an Edomite. Go ahead.
And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman.
So now they bowed and reverenced Haman. They bowed and reverenced him. Go ahead.
For the king had so commanded concerning him.
And the king gave him this position. He said, "You know what? You're my right hand man. Everybody needs to bow when they see you." And then there was a black man that refused to bow to him.
That's right.
And that made him mad. And that makes people mad today when black people refuse to bow to them, man. Whenever they're playing the British anthem and you sit down and you don't care about it, they're looking at you like, what are you doing, man?
Right.
Whenever they're doing their 2-minute silence and you're talking, listen, man. One time I walked into a store that was doing the 2 minutes. I was on the phone loud as you. Everyone's looking at me, man. Listen, man. They want to kill you for that. Like you'll see everybody all patriotic and you're just walking in, not giving to them.
Right.
Obviously, they're looking at you like, yo, you're a slave. You're supposed to do whatever I say. And Haman looked at Mordecai the same way. Go ahead.
But Mordecai bowed not.
But what?
But Mordecai bowed not.
Listen, man. Mordecai was a guy that was in captivity, and he refused to bow down to these oppressors, man.
Right.
And we need to do the same thing as Mordecai today. We need to not bow down to our oppressors, man. We need to not be like the in the Christian church where they bow down and worship everybody. We need to not bow down to them. Go ahead.
Nor did him reverence.
No, he didn't even reverence him. He didn't pay him no mind. Even though Haman was second in charge, he paid him no mind whatsoever. Go ahead.
Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment?
And they said, it's the king's commandment that you must bow to him when you see him. So they said to him, why are you transgressing the king's commandment? Go ahead.
Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew.
So now they knew that Mordecai was a Jew. So they was like, this man's a Jew and he's not bowing to us. We're better than him, man. He better bow to us.
Right.
And that's how they look at us in all their kingdoms, that we must bow to them. Go ahead.
And when
Yeah,
Haman
what verse you at?
verse 5, chapter 3, verse 5.
Chapter 3, verse 5.
Oh.
No, go ahead.
So, yeah.
Yeah, Karen.
And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath.
So now, this man was a power trip, man. He wanted all the power. He wanted you to bow to him. He wanted you to worship him.
Right.
And Mordecai said, I'm not going to do it, man. Mordecai was a black man that refused to bow to him. And that's the things that we're supposed to do. Go ahead. These records is in here for us to follow and learn from and all of those kind of things. Go ahead.
Right. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone.
and he wanted to lay hands on him, meaning he wanted to teach Mordecai a lesson. He's saying, how are you in my kingdom and you're refusing to bow down to me? Go ahead.
For they had showed him the people of Mordecai, wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews.
So now, because one black man refused to bow down to him, he said, I'm going to destroy all the Jews. He said, I'm going to destroy all these Jews, man. And obviously, everybody knows we the real Jews. So we was these people that was captive in Iran. It was us that was there. They wanted all of us destroyed. Same like today, man. They want to get rid of all. They would get rid of us, all of us, if they could.
Right.
Like if you go back to like the 1600s, there's records where Oliver Cromwell said there's too much black people in England. Started sending them to Barbados, man. He sent them to Barbados, and then from Barbados they ended up in Jamaica, man. So that was our route to those places. And listen, man, they shipped us off, and oh wow, we're back in England again, man. Listen, we came back with the Windrush, man, and now that's why they're trying to deport everybody. They're trying to send us off again. Like, why you see history? They're just trying to repeat history. Go ahead. Go ahead. Exactly. Listen, they expel us from everywhere, man. Everywhere we are, it's like they just hate the sight of us. There's one stage where they said ethnic minorities can't even work in Buckingham Palace. They said that black people can't work in Buckingham Palace, man, unless you're going to be the cleaner or whatever. You couldn't be nothing else. And that's on record. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Can you read that from there? Hold on.
Buckingham Palace banned ethnic minorities from office.
They did what?
Banned ethnic minorities from office.
And people say the Queen wasn't racist, man. Of course, the Queen was racist. This whole royal family is built on racism, man. It says ethnic minorities are banned from office jobs. Go ahead. Let me scroll back up.
UK royal officials banned ethnic minorities from clerical roles until at least the 1960s.
See, until at least the 1960s, man, those banned from clerical roles. Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Buckingham Palace placed banned coloured immigrants.
They did what?
Foreigners. Buckingham Palace banned coloured immigrants or foreigners.
So foreigners was banned from working in Buckingham Palace, and they tell you England's not a racist country, man. If England wasn't racist, coloured people would be allowed to work in Buckingham Palace. Because it's racist, they ain't. Read on.
From undertaking office roles for the United Kingdom's royal family until at least the late 1960s, according to documents obtained by the Guardian newspaper.
And they found these documents, man. Go ahead.
Citing the documents which were discovered at UK's National Archives, the Guardian reported on Wednesday that Queen Elizabeth II's chief financial manager informed civil servants in 1968 it was not the practice to appoint coloured immigrants.
Wait, it was not the what?
It was not the practice to appoint coloured immigrants.
Listen, man, they say it was not the practice to appoint coloured immigrants. Go ahead.
Or foreigners to clerical roles in the royal household.
Which means what? We wasn't allowed to work in Buckingham Palace, man.
Right.
So I don't understand how people get mad at us when we say in here only blacks and Hispanics is allowed in here, man. Right. Listen, what's the problem? I mean, they done the same thing with Buckingham Palace. So why is it racist when we do it, man? Whereas when everybody else does it, it's fine. Go ahead. Is there any more on that? Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Such individuals were, however, permitted to work as domestic servants.
Wait, so now the black people in Buckingham Palace, they're allowed to be domestic servants, man.
Right.
Meaning you're allowed to do the cleaning and all of the lesser jobs, but you can't have the office role. Go ahead.
The newspaper reported it was unclear when the practice ran until Buckingham Palace refused to answer questions.
And Buckingham Palace refused to answer the questions, man, as usual. Go ahead.
Right. From the Guardian concerning the ban and when it was ended. Palace officials told the newspaper its records demonstrating people from ethnic minority backgrounds were employed in the 1990s. It claimed it did not keep records on staff.
So now they lied. Now they're trying to say they didn't keep records on staff members.
Right.
Because they're trying to hide their racism by saying they didn't keep records. But they 100% kept the records. I'm telling you, they got the records somewhere. Go ahead.
It claimed they did not keep records on staff members' race in prior decades.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Royal exemptions. The documents also revealed Queen Elizabeth II has been exempt from race and gender equality laws.
So now the Queen's allowed to be racist because she's exempt. Them laws don't apply to her.
Right.
Them laws don't apply to her. So the Queen's allowed to be racist if she wants. Go ahead.
For more than 4 decades since their introduction in the UK in the 1970s.
Go ahead.
That has prohibited individuals working for her household from launching complaints in UK.
So now, if you was working for the Queen and she called you a nigger, guess what? You can't complain about it, man. Because it says it right here. You can't complain about it. You just have to take it and just do whatever she says. Because you can't take her to court. Why? Because she's exempt from race laws, which means she can call you whatever she wants to call you, and there's nothing you can do about it apart from take it. Go ahead.
In the event that they believe they had been discriminated against.
So now, if you felt you was discriminated against in Buckingham Palace, you can't even complain about it. Go ahead.
On either of those grounds. Buckingham Palace told the Guardian that it has a separate process for hearing complaints relating to the alleged discrimination.
Go ahead.
It did not explain the process in further detail.
Go ahead.
Racism row. The findings are likely to spur further debate about the royal family's handling of alleged racism within its ranks, following a high-profile spat early this year involving Meghan Markle.
And listen, man, they hate Meghan Markle, man. Actually, that's it. They hate them so much. They hate them so much that now they kicked Meghan Markle and Harry out of the palace. What's it called? Forest something Palace. I can't remember what it's called, but they've been kicked out of it. They're going to give it to Andrew now. Go ahead, take me back to where was we? Esther, what?
Chapter 3, verse 6.
Go ahead.
For they had showed him the people of Mordecai, wherefore
so now the people had gone and they showed him that obviously Mordecai is a Jew. They showed him that Mordecai is an Israelite, but obviously he told Esther to hide her nationality. Go ahead.
Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus.
So now he wanted to destroy all the Jews that was throughout the kingdom. Because why? Haman, he hated black people, man, and he wanted them gone. So he said, I'm going to destroy all of them. Go ahead.
Even the people of Mordecai.
Even the people of Mordecai, because why? The Jews was a family of Mordecai's. Go ahead.
In the first month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast Pur, that is the lot, before Haman, from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces.
So now they said there's a certain people, like they just didn't hate everybody. They said there's a certain people. I'm going to see who these certain people are. Go ahead.
The people in and their laws are diverse from all people.
And they said their laws are diverse from all people. Because why? We have laws from God, and our laws is different to everybody else's, man.
Right.
Our way of life is different to everybody else's, and they don't want us to have a different law compared to them. They want to rule over us. They would rather us be gone. Why? Because they know that, obviously, they know that God is with us and God gave us laws and we're going to follow those laws. And they're saying, in our kingdom, we don't want you people serving a different God. They want us to serve their God and follow their laws. And that's why there was like, their laws is diverse, letting you know that we are different from all the other people on the face of the earth. Go ahead.
Neither keep they the king's laws.
Neither what?
Neither keep they the king's laws.
It says, neither keep they the king's laws. Because their laws, we can't keep their laws. Even now, we can't keep their laws. We ain't supposed to be celebrating Christmas, Easter, and birthdays and all of those kind of things. We ain't supposed to be eating pork and all of those kind of things. because our laws is diverse to their laws, and they can't stand it. They want us to do what they do. They want us to be in Rome and do what be in Rome and do what Rome does. That's what they want us to do. Meanwhile, we be here saying our laws is diverse. We're going to keep our own laws. They hate that, and Haman also hated that. Also, he didn't want to see black people doing whatever they wanted. He wanted to see them keeping the laws of the king. Go ahead.
Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them.
He said what?
It is not for the king's profit to suffer them.
So now he was one of the wise men that speaks with the king. He's saying it's not for the king's profit to allow these people to live, because as long as they live, they're going to be doing their own thing. So this is why they want to wipe us out, man. And what you'll find is they've done the same thing in the book of Maccabees. In Egypt, they've done the same thing. They've always wanted to wipe us out everywhere we go. Go ahead.
Right. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed.
So now you have to go to the king, and then the king will sign it off. The king will seal it with his ring. It's like a stamp. He will stamp it, and then that means it has the king's authority. So what they done is he wanted the king to give him the order to kill all the Jews. Go ahead.
Right. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have charge of the business.
And he said, you know what? I'll pay 10,000. I'll pay for you to kill these Jews, man. That's what he said. I'll pay for you to kill these Jews. Go ahead.
To bring it into the king's treasuries.
Go ahead.
And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman.
And the king agreed, man. So the king took his ring from his hand and he sealed it with his ring. He sealed it with his ring and said, you know what? Okay, then. Whatever you're saying, we're going to do. Go ahead.
And gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy.
The whose enemy?
The Jews' enemy.
And Haman was the Jews' enemy. And this is why we're here today. Why? Because they wanted us killed, man. And what we hear, we celebrate in what? How we survived and they ended up getting killed, man.
Right.
And that's what we here celebrating. What you'll find is all the feast days in the Bible is about people trying to kill us and the Lord turning it around and destroying them instead, man. And that's how it's supposed to be. Hold on. What verse you at?
Verse 11, sir.
Go ahead.
And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written, according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language.
So now he wrote to every other nation that was in these provinces and said, wherever you find these Jews, kill them. Wherever you find them, kill them and slaughter them. Go ahead. Which lets you know that this is a race thing. Listen, you could be the greatest Christian on the face of the earth, man. As long as you're from the same race as us, they're going to kill you, man.
That's right.
Listen, when there's race riots, you don't have time to say to an Arab man, listen, I'm a Muslim. You don't have time to say that, man. He sees your skin color. Listen, there was even a black man that was coming from work and they stabbed him. He was a Muslim, right? I believe he was a Muslim. He was a Muslim and they stabbed him based on his skin color, man. Which lets you know this is a race thing. Go ahead.
That's right. And to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring.
So now, obviously, he took his ring off, he sealed it, and basically said, all right, then, this is the order. You can do whatever you want to do. Go ahead.
Right. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces.
And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces. So they would send letters, they would put men on a horse and send letters, or they probably would do it with pigeons, I believe. What do they call it? Is it homing pigeons? Yeah, they call them homing pigeons. They put the letter on the pigeon's back, and then obviously the pigeon would go deliver the letter. Go ahead.
To destroy, to kill, and to
so in these letters it said to kill, to destroy. Go ahead.
And to cause to perish all Jews.
And to cause to perish all Jews. Imagine some of these Jews would have been innocent minding their business.
Right.
They still wanted them dead. They still wanted them to perish. Go ahead.
Both young and old.
Both what?
Both young and old.
Listen, they wanted to kill our babies, man. They wanted to kill both young and old.
That's right.
Imagine our children are young and innocent and don't know nothing, and they wanted to kill them, man. They wanted to kill both young and old, man. Go ahead.
Little children and women.
Wait, and what?
Little children and women.
They wanted to kill little children and women. They didn't care about your gender, your age. All they cared about is you're a Jew. They wanted you dead.
Right.
Which lets you know this was a thing based on race, man. Go ahead.
In one day.
In what?
In one day.
They wanted us wiped out in one day. they set a date to have us come. Go ahead.
Even upon the 30th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar.
And this was the date that they set. Go ahead.
And to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day.
So now they set a day, they sent the letter and said, all right then, kill all the Jews. And because Esther had hid her nationality, obviously she found out what the plan was, what was going to happen. Because the king didn't know her nationality, because Mordecai told her to hide it. So probably while the king's pillow talking, saying, yeah, this is the date that you can kill them Jews, he's not realizing that he's laying next to one. So, because obviously Mordecai told her hide your nationality. So she's heard that. Listen, man. And then she's gone back to Mordecai and obviously told him what's going to happen. Go ahead.
The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace, and the king
and the order was given in the palace in Iran. Go ahead.
And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed.
And now the city was confused. Perplexed is another word for confused.
Right.
So they was confused because they just heard out of the blue, all right, the day's going to come, kill all these Jews. They're confused, like, kill them for what? Haman wanted all the Jews killed. Why? Because one black man wouldn't bow down to him. Man. And he wanted everybody killed for that. Go ahead.
When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes.
So now, once Mordecai heard what was done, he rent his clothes. Back then your garments was expensive. He ripped it and he put ashes on his head, and that would show you his mourning. Go ahead.
And went into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and bitter cry.
And he went and cried. Why? Because his hearing, basically, he thinks he's going to die on that day. He was told, this is the day you and all your people are going to die. If someone said to you, you and your whole family is going to die next week, you're going to cry also. So that's the state that he was in. Go ahead.
And came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth.
And you couldn't go in there with sackcloth. If you wanted to go speak to the king or go in the king's gate, you had to be dressed right. Like, you couldn't just go all rough. Go ahead.
And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews.
And the Jews was mourning. Imagine being a people with no power, no weapons, no strength. Right. You're in captivity under a next nation. And then now you're hearing the day that they're going to kill you. There was great mourning amongst the people, man. Go ahead.
And fasting and weeping and wailing.
And there was fasting and crying and wailing and all of those kind of things. Go ahead.
And many lay in sackcloth and ashes.
Go ahead.
So Esther's maids and the chamberlains came and told it her.
Go ahead.
Then was the queen exceedingly grieved.
And they told it her, man. But when they told her, they didn't know who she was, because obviously she hid her nationality. Go ahead.
Then was the king exceedingly grieved.
And she was grieved, man, because she's hearing, all right, all my people are going to die on this day.
Right.
Go ahead.
And she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him.
And now Mordecai had on sackcloth, so what did she do? She sent him a nice garment, man. She sent him a nice garment to put on, because he was dressed in clothes that you'd wear when you're mourning. Go ahead.
But he received it not.
And he received it not. Why? Because he's mourning, man. He's saying, yo, forget the clothes right now. It's not, the clothes ain't important. He's in a state of mourning and all of those kind of things. Go ahead.
Then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment for Mordecai to know what it was and why it was.
Go ahead.
So Hatak sent forth to Mordecai into the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay.
So now they're relaying it to Mordecai. They're giving it him in depth now. Go ahead.
To the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also, he gave him a copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go unto the king to make supplication unto him.
So now, because Esther's married to the king, he's charged there. Like Mordecai said, yo, Tyler, go to the king and speak to him, and try and get this decree turned around. Because if not, all of us are going to be killed. Go ahead.
Right. And to make requests before him for her people.
And he said, make requests before her people. So now, what with Esther, because she was so beautiful, the king was in love with her, and Mordecai is telling her right now, look, man, now's the time for you to save this whole nation. Now's the time for you to go in there and speak to the king, get him to change this decree. Go ahead.
Right. And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Hatak and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king of the shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called. There is
so now she was like, I can't go into the inner court. Why? Because if you know anything about a king, you can't just walk up in his palace. You have to be called. So she's saying, go back to Mordecai and tell him, I can't just pull up like that. Go ahead.
Right. There is one law of his to put him to death.
And now, if you just walk up in there like that, it's punishable by death.
Right.
This is the king that runs the whole state and all them provinces. You can't just walk up in there like that. Go ahead.
Except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter.
So now the king had a golden scepter, which is like a stick. Now he would hold it out, and that's when you could come in. You can't just pull up. Go ahead.
But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days.
So it's been 30 days since you've seen the king. Go ahead.
And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself.
He said what?
Think not with thyself.
So Mordecai saying to her, listen, stop being so selfish. Think about the rest of us, man. She's saying, I can't go in there because I might die if I'm not called. He's saying, don't think about yourself, man.
Right.
Do this for the rest of us. Go ahead.
Right. That thou shalt escape in the king's house.
And he's saying what? Basically saying what? Because you're in the king's house and the rest of us ain't. Listen, man. It's kind of like, what's her name? Michelle Obama, man. She was in the king's house at one stage, man. When she was married to Barack Obama, she was in the king's house. Whereas the rest of us is outside the king's house, man. Listen, one time Moses was in the king's house, and what did Moses do? Moses left the king's house so he could join the rest of us. Find that precept for me. You know which one it is? Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
It's Hebrews 11 and 25.
Yeah, get me.
Book of Hebrews chapter 11 verse 25. Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin.
Read up.
Verse 24. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter.
So Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, man. Why? Because Moses was what? Moses was living good in Egypt, man.
Right.
He was in Pharaoh's house, and Moses seen how black people were struggling. Moses saw how black people was on drugs. Moses saw black on black crime in the Bible, man. And Moses said, I can't live in the king's house if my people are struggling. Moses could have just, been like every other rich Negro that just stays there. Moses said, nah, I'd rather suffer with the people of God. Go ahead.
Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God.
Moses did what?
Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God.
Whereas you shouldn't be selfish, man. Moses could have been selfish and said, you know what? I'm living good, but the rest of them are living bad. That's a them problem. Moses could have said what they say in these songs. Moses could have said, F these broke niggas like what they say in these songs, man. Right. Moses didn't say that. Moses said, you know what? These is my brothers. I'm going to go and join them. Read that one more time.
Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God.
And Moses chose to suffer with his people, man, which is brotherhood. The thing about it is, listen, man, how can one of us live good and the rest of us is living terribly? Right. What we need to do is help our people out so we can all live good, man. That's right. And that's what Jesus Christ did, man. He came and when he came, he wasn't living good. He said he's got nowhere to lay his head. He goes, the foxes have holes, but I have nowhere to lay my head, man. And he came and suffered with blacks and Hispanics also. Read on.
Than to enjoy the pleasures of sin.
Than to what?
Than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season.
And the pleasures of sin, it only lasts for a season, man.
Right.
This rap money you're getting, it's only going to last so long.
That's right.
This drug money you're getting, it's only going to last so long, man. But what Moses done, he gave up all of that. And we speaking about Moses like what? 6,000 years after these records was written, man. Right. Whereas we ain't speaking about that rich man that Christ told him give up the riches and he couldn't do it. Right. We don't even know his name, man. Right. He ain't got no name. Nobody knows his name. But with Moses, we're still speaking about Moses like 6,000 years later. Go ahead.
Esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt.
And listen, man, he said, listen, the riches of Christ is better than what? The riches of Egypt. Which is, man, listen, we've got a kingdom to come. And all we have to do is serve the Lord, man, and have brotherhood, and we will get that kingdom where we don't have to work for nobody no more. We don't have to be oppressed no more. Take me back to Esther.
Esther chapter 4 and verse verse 13. Think not with thyself that thou should escape with the king's
So he
house
told her, listen, don't be selfish, man. Go ahead.
more than all the Jews.
Meaning what? Just because you're okay, think about the rest of us. Go ahead.
For if thou altogether holdeth thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews.
And he's saying now's the time for you to open your mouth, man. He's saying if you keep quiet now, we're all doomed. They're going to kill all the Jews because Haman had a decree to kill all the Jews in a set date. Go ahead.
Then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place, but thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed.
And he said, thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, man. Go ahead.
And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
And he's saying, listen, who knows if the Lord sent you into this kingdom for this moment, man.
Right.
Like you've been sent for this moment. You've been sent for this moment to save your people, man. Now you're in the king's house. Do something with it. Use this moment to save your people. Go ahead.
Then Esther bade them return Mordecai with this answer: Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in the chat, and fast ye for me.
So now she said, go and fast and pray and do all of those kind of things.
And neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maiden will fast likewise.
So now Esther's saying, all right, then go back to Mordecai and pass this message back to him. So she's heard him out and she's about to go and do what he told her to do. So she's saying, all right, pray and fast. Because she's going to go into the king's house and speak to him about the situation with the Jews and Haman wanting to kill them on the set date. Go ahead.
And so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish,
and now she said, you know what? I'm going to go in unto the king, which is not according to the law.
Right.
Because according to the law, the king has to call you in. You can't just go in without his permission. You going in without his permission is punishable by death. You have to be invited in. She said, all right, forget that. If I die, I die, but I'm going to go into the king and see what happens. Meaning she put it all on the line, man. Esther is a sister who should be spoken of, man.
That's right.
Because why? She done a great work. Whereas Esther's a great sister which should be spoken of, but instead people want to speak about Beyonce and Tommy Lee and all of those people from Love and Hip Hop, whereas they shouldn't be spoken of, because what they do is they set black people back by like 400 or 500 years, man. I watched Real Housewives of Atlanta and I felt like I was set back by 500 years, man.
Right.
After that one episode, was like all they do is fight for the whole show, and they call it Real Housewives, meaning this is what housewives are supposed to do. Whereas when you watch any other nation, their housewives don't behave like that, man.
Right.
Their housewives have on the apron and they be doing all of those kind of things. They be cooking, they be taking care of the household. But when it comes to us, what do they be doing? Fighting, nails is done, weaves done, BBLs, all these. Listen, man. And they lie to us to keep us in the state that we're in. Read on.
And if I perish, I perish.
So now she said, you know what? From a nation, if I perish, I'm going to perish. Go ahead.
So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him.
So now Mordecai went his way and he done all that Esther commanded him. Esther told him to gather all the Jews in Shushan and fast and pray. And with that, we're going to clap it up. We'll do the other half tomorrow. We're going to do the prayers and then are the prayers over there? So we're going to do the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew and English. Should be the one on the top. Is it that one? Yeah, that one. I want to see it. Yeah. All right, rise and face the east. I'm going to do the Lord's Prayer in the Hebrew. Abinah, Baal Shemayim, Dash, Ayah, Shamkar, Yahweh, Lakukah, Baba'ah, Batazaka, Hayah, Aisha, Ba'aratazah, Kawar, Hayah, Baal Shemayim, the Fundanoah, Come, the Wam, what's the lucky Noah, Kabawafi Noah, what's the lucky Noah, Kabawafi Noah, Wala I know. Badasai one. Ball. Shine Mayan. Right. Hayam. Makam.
I will love you. And in English, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. So be it.
All right, Shamgar, you can call it.
All right, men of Israel, I imagine Shabbat, I imagine Barak,
Yahweh Hashem Yahweh
Yahweh Hashem Shabbat Kafam.
Yad Matah, Psalms, we need to turn, face the sisters. Men of Israel, I imagine Shabbat, I imagine Barak, Yahweh Hashem Yad Matah, dismissed.